Rylan, baby, come see what just walked in.
Morning, ma'am. One deposit, please.
$7 million. Everyone, we have a millionaire at window 4.
The serial number is under the amount. Run it, please.
Babe, get his autograph before security does.
Sweetheart, this account holds $41. Baby sing-song reading.
My wife opened that account. The book, please.
Bank property, sweetheart. We shred paper now.
Ma'am, your own bank printed that check. Scan it.
There. Now it is confetti, sweetheart.
Babe, do it again slower for the camera.
Keep the envelope handy, ma'am. And note the time.
Have you ever been applauded by people who were about to spit on you? Keep that envelope marked 0
Next
in mind.
customer forward.
Because in less than 23 hours, the president of this entire bank will cross that same marble. Stop in front of the man in the work boots and call him sir. Comment where you are watching from. Drop a like. And let us rewind. Boyce Dunbar was 19 years old, the first time anybody paid him to be cold. He stacked crates on a produce dock in Brightwater, Georgia, 4 in the morning to noon. And he noticed the thing nobody else on that dock cared to notice. The men who owned the trucks got rich. The men who owned the cold got richer. Lettuce wilts. Medicine spoils. Peaches turn in a single warm afternoon. Whoever keeps the temperature keeps the town. At 26, he bought a broken ice house at a county auction for less than the price of a used car. The compressor was dead, and the roof leaked, and the auctioneer laughed when he raised his hand. He slept in the office on a cot for 2 winters, fixing that compressor with parts other men threw away. By 30, he had 2 cold rooms and a refrigerated truck. By 40, he had Dunbar Cold Chain. Warehouses in 5 states. 900 employees with dental coverage. And half the groceries in the region riding on his thermometers. If you ate a peach in that part of Georgia, odds were good. It had slept one night under his roof. Nobody looked at him and saw any of that, which suited him fine. He drove the same green pickup he bought when Maisie was born. He wore the gray work shirt with his name stitched on it because he still walked his own floors. And a man who dresses above his crew stops hearing the truth from them. His money did not live in his clothes. It lived in payroll accounts and pension funds and a small cloth passbook with soft corners. The passbook was Sela's. He met her at 19. On that same dock, when she came asking whether the delivery had come in for the pharmacy where she worked. She was the kind of beautiful that made grown men forget their own phone numbers. Brown skin that held light like late honey. A laugh that could reset a bad day from across a parking lot. She was also smarter than him about money. And she told him so. And she was right. Her first paycheck went into a joint account at the Granville National Branch on Marden Avenue. Opened at window 4 by a teller named Lorelei Winslett. 23 years ago this fall, when Maisie came, Selah wrote a new nickname in the front of the book in her careful, upright hand. College. And then some. Selah had one rule about money, and she said it the way other people say grace. First money goes to the book. A first paycheck. The first dollar off a new contract. The first bill out of any envelope worth celebrating. It went into that account before it went anywhere else. Even if the rest moved on the next morning. Not for the interest. For the habit, so the family's luck would always know its way home. 3 years ago, on an ordinary Tuesday, an aneurysm took her between the coffee pot and the kitchen table, and Boyce learned that a man can keep 900 employees calm and still not know how to boil an egg for a 5-year-old with her mother's eyes. He learned braids off a video. Badly. Then, well, he learned that grief does not shrink. You just build a bigger life around it. Maisie was 8 now. Fast at multiplication. Ruthless at checkers. And she kept a pickle jar on the windowsill labeled in crayon. College and then some. Because she had heard the story of the book 100 times and demanded a branch office of her own. The 17 acres were his first yard. The east side land where the ice house still stood. Granville National's parent company wanted it for a new operations campus. And they had wanted it badly for 2 years. A silver-haired regional president named Milton Henzerling had courted him through 19 dinners and 100 phone calls. And on Tuesday, at a closing table in the Capitol, the chairman of the holding company himself had slid a pale blue cashier's check across the wood. $7 million. Drawn by Granville National, on Granville National. Signed by its own chief financial officer. The chairman had shaken his hand. Hensarling had walked him to the elevator. Boyce could have wired the money anywhere on earth. Instead, on Thursday morning, he made pancakes, redid one crooked braid, dropped Maisie at school with her jar money zipped in her bag, and drove the green pickup to Marden Avenue. First money goes to the book. He walked one last time through the empty ice house on the way, touched the doorframe where he used to measure Selah's height against his shoulder. And then he went to put the first of the land money where the love was. He was still wearing his work boots when he pulled open the heavy brass door at 4 minutes past 10. The lobby of the Marden Avenue branch smelled like carpet cleaner and cold brass. Thursday, mid-morning. A dozen customers in line. Tellers murmuring behind glass. The chandelier doing its 100-year-old job. Boyce took his place behind the velvet rope with the deposit slip already filled out. The check in its envelope against his chest. And Selah's passbook in his hand like a humnal. The young teller at window 3 saw him first. She was new. 3 months in. And she had not yet learned the branch's private weather. She smiled at him the way you are supposed to smile at a customer. And she was reaching for her microphone to call him forward when a shadow in ice blue silk crossed the floor behind her. Lorelei Winslett had been branch manager for 9 years. And she ran that lobby. The way some people run a dinner party, deciding at the door who was a guest and who was staff. She had watched the work boots come through her brass doors from her office, watched them wait politely in her line, and she had walked out with the special bright expression she saved for what she called quality control. She reached window 4 just as Boyce did, slid in front of the terminal, and sent the young teller to count her drawer with 2 fingers and no explanation. Morning. Ma'am. 1. Deposit. Please. She took the check the way you take a flyer from a stranger at an intersection. Then she read it, and her whole face opened up like a curtain going up on a stage. The gasp, the hand at the pearls, the delighted glance around the room to make sure her audience was seated. Boyce watched the performance assemble itself and felt his stomach settle into the old, familiar concrete. He knew this show. He had front-row tickets to it his whole life. $7 million, she announced, and rang the counter bell twice. Everyone. We have a millionaire at window 4. The sound did what she wanted. Heads turned. A tall man in golf clothes laughed into his coffee. Somebody near the ropes clapped, and then others joined. Because laughter in a room is a current, and most people are driftwood. She swept her arm toward Boyce like a hostess unveiling a prize hog at a county fair. He stood in the applause without moving, hands open on the marble, and waited it out the way his docks waited out rain. Where did we get this? Sweetheart? She asked. When the clapping thinned. Not you. We. The voice you use on a shoplifting teenager. Your bank wrote it to me on Tuesday. Boyce said. At the closing table in the Capitol, your own corporate office drew that check. It was the plain truth, offered plainly. And it was the funniest thing Lorelei Winslett had heard all week. She laughed with her head tipped back, gorgeous and merciless, and repeated it to the room. The closing table, in the Capitol. She wiped the corner of one eye with a knuckle, careful of the makeup. Behind her, Rylan Burrell had left the business desk and drifted over with his phone low at his hip, thumb already recording. Cologne, arriving a half-second before he did. Babe, get his autograph before security does, he said, and the golf clothes man barked, and the ropes tittered, and the phone's little lens drank all of it. She asked for identification. He gave her his license. She held it up to the light, turned it over, frowned at it like a customs agent at a forged passport, and set it down without apology. She asked what he did for work. He said cold storage. She repeated the words cold storage with air quotes she drew slowly, so the camera would not miss them, and asked if that meant he stocked freezers at the grocery store. And the ropes laughed again, and he did not answer. Because the question was not a question. It was a caption. The serial number is under the amount, Boyce said instead. Level as a bubble in a carpenter's tool. Run it. Please. The scanner sat 8 inches from her elbow. 4 seconds. 1 pass. And the branch system would have pulled the record from corporate and lit the screen green. Her own manual called it Step 1. Her eyes flicked to it once. Involuntary. The oldest reflex in banking. And then Rylan's phone caught the light, and the room shifted its weight, and the reflex died of stage fright. She did not scan it. She pulled up his account instead. Sweetheart, she said, tapping the screen with one red nail. Loud enough for the mortgage desk. This account holds $41. The number went around the ropes like a joke at a wake. $41. The golf clothes man mouthed it to his phone. What the screen did not tell them, and what Lorelei did not ask, was that the account had held $41 since the week Selah died, because Boyce could not bring himself to touch it, and had promised himself the next money into that book would be money worth her handwriting. Then Lorelei noticed the passbook. She picked it up with her fingertips, flipped the soft cover, and read the nickname off the first page in a voice you would use on a crayon drawing. College. And then some. She fanned herself with it. And then, holding Boyce's eyes the whole time, she dropped his wife's handwriting into the shred bin at her knee. Casual as ash into an ashtray, the lobby heard his breath stop. It was 1 second. Only one. But it was the loudest silence of the morning. My wife opened that account. He said, The book. Please. Bank property. Sweetheart, we shred paper now. She smiled it. The room's laughter came back thinner this time, and a few customers found their shoes very interesting. Because there is a line, even in a room enjoying itself, and everyone had just felt something cross it. Lorelei felt it too, felt the current wobble, and did what people like her do when the audience cools. She raised the stakes. Up went the check, held to the chandelier with both hands. Jeweler style. She squinted at the eagle watermark that her own employer prints. She tilted the raised black ink that her own chief financial officer had signed above. She shook her head slowly. Sadly, a doctor delivering the diagnosis she had been rooting for. "Ma'am," Boyce said, "your own bank printed that check. Scan it." For a quarter of a second, the smile flattened, and something behind her lashes did arithmetic. The scanner hummed within reach. The truth sat one green screen away. 4 seconds round trip. And that was exactly the problem. A green screen meant an apology. In front of the golf clothes man. In front of Ryland's phone. In front of a lobby she had spent 9 years teaching to watch her win. She set the check down on the marble and smoothed it flat. Almost tenderly. "There," she said, and tore it in half. "Now it is confetti." "Sweetheart." The rip was soft. It carried anyway. The way small sounds do in marble rooms. And afterward, the lobby was quiet in a way it had not been all morning. She squared the halves like a woman gift wrapping and tore them again. Slower, watching his face for the crack that never came. A strip of watermark eagle curled onto the counter between them like a feather off a shot bird. Boyce Dunbar stood still and let it happen. And the room mistook the stillness for helplessness, which is the oldest mistake that room ever made. He was doing mathematics of his own. There was a daughter who needed her father home for dinner. Not on the evening news. There was a woman at window 2 he had not stopped being aware of. Silver-haired, motionless, whose placard had just turned from open to closed. And there was the fact. Known to any man who has moved freight for 20 years, that she had not destroyed his money. Money is not paper. She had destroyed an instrument. And instruments have serial numbers. And serial numbers keep better company than she did. She plucked a deposit envelope from the rack, dropped the 4 pieces in, licked it shut, and wrote one word across the front in looping red ink. 0. She slid it through the slot like change from a vending machine. "Babe, do it again, slower for the camera," Ryland called, shaking with laughter behind the lens. And she looked straight down the barrel of his phone and took a small bow. Hands spread, while 5 or 6 pairs of hands tried to restart the applause and mostly failed. "Keep the envelope handy." "Ma'am," Boyce said, sliding it flat into his breast pocket. Over his heart, the way another man pockets a folded flag. "And note the time." Something in the sentence hitched her laugh for half a beat. It had a serial number in it. Then she shooed him with the backs of her fingers, and rang her little bell again, and called next. Boyce Dunbar walked the length of her marble at his own pace. Past the ropes. Past the phones. Past the golf clothes man studying his shoes. And out through the heavy brass doors into the bright Georgia morning. Carrying $7 million of confetti in his pocket and leaving his wife's handwriting in the dark behind him. At window 2, Miss Lurline Broussard watched the doors swing shut and did not open her window again for the rest of the morning. The green pickup sat on Marden Avenue for 4 full minutes before he started it. Boyce did not hit the wheel. He did not call a lawyer from the curb. He sat with his hands at 10 and 2, breathing the way you breathe when you are carrying something heavy downstairs. And then he drove east, out past the rail spur, to the 17 acres that were not his anymore. The ice house stood in the morning light, with its new surveyor stakes around it like birthday candles. He walked the fence line one last time, boots in the red dust, past the loading dock, where a 19-year-old had stacked crates for a man who never learned his name, past the doorframe with the pencil marks where Selah used to stand to be measured, laughing, insisting she had grown. The bank was going to put an operations campus here. 400 jobs. They said, Henzerling had promised to save the ice house itself. Fold it into the courtyard. A landmark. Boyce had made them write it down. He was a man who made people write things down. That was the part the lobby had missed. Watching the work boots and the quiet. Boyce Dunbar had spent 23 years in an industry where the freight is real, but the paper is realer. A load of medicine is worth nothing if the cold chain paperwork breaks. A bill of lading. A temperature log. A chain of custody. He had built an empire on one boring truth. When something goes wrong with cargo, you do not argue with the man at the dock. You pull the documents, and you let the documents argue. She had not burned his money. Money is not paper. She had destroyed a negotiable instrument drawn by her own employer on itself. An instrument with a serial number sitting in Granville National's own ledger. 4 seconds from any scanner in any branch, including the one at her elbow. There was a protocol for a destroyed cashier's check the way there is a protocol for a dropped pallet of insulin. He knew it the way she should have. And there was another reason he had not raised his voice. Had not said the words that would have ended it in one sentence. Do you know who I am? He had watched men say that in rooms his whole life. It worked. When it was true, that was exactly what was wrong with it. If he said it, the apology would come to the name, not to the man. The window would open for Boyce Dunbar of Dunbar Cold Chain, and close again on the next workshirt that walked in with the wrong face and no name to drop. Whatever lived behind that counter had been fed for years. He did not want it apologized to. He wanted it pulled out into the light by the roots. Back on Marden Avenue, the branch spent its afternoon congratulating itself. Ryland clipped the best 40 seconds of his video. The gasp, the bell, the bow, and posted it at 10:36 to a group chat called Corner Office. 11 members. All branch staff, past and present. He captioned it, "Babe, I cannot breathe," with 3 crying, laughing faces. The replies came in like gulls. Lorelei watched them land over his shoulder on her lunch break, wearing the loose, warm smile of a woman whose morning had gone viral in the only room she cared about. At 10:52, she did the other thing, the quiet thing, the thing that would matter more than all of it. She opened the branch system and filed a suspected counterfeit instrument report. Every field crisp, every box ticked like a good student. Instrument presented by walk-in customer. Amount, 7 million. Determination, obvious forgery. Destroyed at window. And then the field that asked, issuing desk contacted for verification. And she clicked yes. And in the box for the confirmation reference, she typed a string of letters and numbers with the easy rhythm of a woman inventing a phone call, the way other people invent a headache. She read it over once. Pleased. It looked exactly like diligence. She hit submit, and the report swam upstream into the corporate system with her name signed to the bottom of it. And she went back to her office and forgot it the way you forget a receipt. The branch closed at 5. The tellers counted out. The young teller from window 3 left fast with her jacket over her arm and did not say good night. Miss Lurline Broussard stayed. She had a drawer to balance, she said, and she balanced it, slowly. While the lights went off section by section, and Lorelei's heels clicked out to the parking lot, and Ryland's cologne finally lost the room. At 20 minutes to 7, alone in the half-dark, Lurline walked to window 4 with her keyring, knelt, and opened the shred bin. The passbook lay on top of a day's dead receipts. Soft, cornered, face down, like something that had fallen asleep, waiting. The shredding service came Friday mornings. She had known that schedule for 29 years, the way you know when the mail runs. She lifted the book out with both hands, smoothed the cloth cover flat. and stood a long moment in the dark lobby, holding it against the front of her cardigan. She remembered the girl who opened it, 19 years old, bright as new money, sliding her first paycheck across this same counter and saying, "So serious? We are saving for a college that does not have a student yet." Lorelei had stamped the first line herself. She had watched the nickname get written in that careful, upright hand. She had cashed the checks that fed a family through 2 recessions. And 3 years ago, she had watched a tall man in a gray work shirt come in alone to change the account to a single name. And she had not trusted her voice enough to say anything but sign here. She did not take the book home. That would be a thing they could name. She wrapped it in a clean bank envelope, laid it flat in the bottom of her own locked teller drawer, under her church fan and her roll of quarters, and turned the little key. Paper has to survive the night before it can testify in the morning. 29 years behind a counter teaches you that if you are the kind of person who was paying attention, across town, the house on Perch Street smelled like garlic bread. Boyce checked, long division, lost twice at checkers, and listened to a detailed briefing on the politics of the 3rd grade lunch table. Maisie fell asleep mid-sentence in the big chair, the way her mother used to, and he carried her up, and her jar of crayon labeled money sat on the windowsill catching the streetlight. College, and then some, waiting on a bank worth walking into. At 9:04, with the house quiet, Boyce sat at the kitchen table where Selah's photograph watched from the shelf. That face the cameras never did justice. The kind of beautiful that made strangers stop her in grocery stores just to say so. He set the envelope marked 0 on the table in front of him. Then he dialed the after-hours line of the Selden firm, the law office that had papered the closing. And a night desk paralegal named Marchetta Winfield picked up on the second ring with a voice like a filing cabinet. Organized and fireproof. He told her what had happened to the instrument. All of it. Dates and times. The way a man reads a temperature log, there was a pause you could have parked a truck in. "Sir, I am going to read that back to you," she said, and did. To the minute. Then she laid out the protocol as if she had been waiting all year for someone to ask. A sworn affidavit of destroyed instrument, notarized tonight by video. Her notary was on shift. A formal stop and reissue order lodged against the serial number. Flagged with protest, meaning the issuer must investigate the circumstances of destruction before $1 moves. And because the issuer was Granville National itself, the filing would land in the corporate treasury queue before sunrise. Stamped with the reason line he dictated to her, word for word. Instrument, destroyed by branch personnel. Marden Avenue. 10:19 Thursday morning. They will see that at the top of the queue, when Treasury opens at 7:30, Marchetta said, "Is that the outcome you want?" "Sir, that is the outcome the paper wants." Boyce said, "I am just signing it." A little silence. And then, for the first time that day, somebody on the other side of a counter said the right thing. "Understood. Sir, consider it done." The affidavit was notarized at 9:31. Boyce set his phone face down, looked at the envelope marked 0, and turned it over so the word faced the table. Then he went up to check the crooked braid one more time, because tomorrow was picture day, and some deadlines matter more than banks. At 7:38 the next morning, in the Treasury Operations Department on the 9th floor of the Granville National Tower, a vice president named Everly Doss opened the overnight queue with her coffee still too hot to sip. She read the top filing once. She set the coffee down. She read it again. The amount, the serial, the reason line. Instrument destroyed by branch personnel, and Everly Doss, who had processed 11 years of dry paper without a single dramatic moment. Stood up so fast, her chair rolled backward into the wall. Everly Doss made 2 calls before her coffee went cold. The first confirmed what she already knew, that the serial belonged to a live instrument drawn by Granville National on Granville National. Issued Tuesday at a closing the whole 9th floor, had heard about. The second went to the Capitol and interrupted the regional president mid-toast. Milton Henserling, 61, silver-haired, a man who had survived 4 mergers without once raising his voice, listened for 11 seconds and asked her to say the branch name again. Marden Avenue. That is the branch his late wife banked at, he said quietly. Then Everly Doss heard a car door slam through the receiver. He drove the 90 minutes in 79. Corporate counsel, reading the affidavit aloud in the passenger seat. Everly Doss following in her own car. When counsel read the reason line aloud, Henserling said one word that men his age usually save for golf. At 2 minutes past 9, Boyce Dunbar walked back through the heavy brass doors of the Marden Avenue branch, carrying 2 pages. The morning line went quiet, the way a field goes quiet before weather. The young teller at window 3 stood up without knowing why, and Lorelei Winslett came out of her office with yesterday's smile already assembled. "Sweetheart, if you are here about your arts and crafts," she began, and somebody near the ropes chuckled on cue. Boyce laid the 2 pages on the counter. "This is an acknowledgement of destruction for a cashier's check drawn by this bank," he said, level as a temperature log. "Your issuer needs a branch officer's signature under the circumstances of destruction. You were the officer. It is one signature. Ma'am, the pen is right there." She picked the pages up, read 4 lines, and laughed her beautiful laugh. And this time it came out 1 size too small for the room. "We do not sign fan fiction at this branch," she said. To him. To the ropes. To Ryland's already lifted phone. She was still holding the pages up like a comedy prop when the doors opened. 3 people came through them in dark coats. And the temperature of the marble changed. A woman with a treasury lanyard. A man with a council briefcase. And ahead of them, moving at the pace of an incoming verdict, a silver-haired man whose photograph hung in Lorelei's own break room. "Milton," she said, and her voice found its brightest setting. "Sir, thank goodness. This is the gentleman from yesterday's counterfeit. He has come back with paperwork. I was just—" Milton Henserling walked past her window without turning his head. The way you pass a car alarm. He crossed the lobby, stopped in front of the man in the gray work shirt, and stood up straighter than that room had ever seen him stand. "Mr. Dunbar, sir." The word landed on the marble like a dropped vault door. "I got in the car the moment Treasury called. Sir, on behalf of every floor of this institution, I am ashamed of the trip you had to make this morning." The lobby did not gasp. It stopped. The golf clothes man froze with his coffee halfway up. The word "sir" went around the ropes in a whisper doing laps. And Ryland Burrell's phone drifted downward by degrees, like a flag finding out about a funeral. Then his other instinct took over, and he came around the business desk with his hand already out. "Ryland Burrell. Sir. Business banking. If there is anything at all, our commercial team can—" There he stopped. Milton Henserling looked at the offered hand the way you look at gum on a church pew, and did not take it. The hand hung in the air until it understood it was alone, and went back into his pocket to die. "You are looking at the founder and sole owner of Dunbar Cold Chain," Henserling said, to the whole listening marble. 900 employees. 5 states. The largest private cold storage operator in the Southeast, and the man whose 17 acres this bank's entire new operations campus will stand on. I sat at that closing. I watched our chairman put that check in his hand. And I heard what our chairman called him. There are 2 years of my signature in that relationship. And your window fed it into an envelope and wrote a word on it. The word was 0, Boyce said mildly, and took the envelope from his breast pocket and set it on the counter in front of the Treasury officer. Every piece is in there, ma'am. Even the corner with your eagle on it. Everly Doss opened the envelope with gloved fingers, tipped the 4 torn pieces onto a document sleeve, and fit them together on the marble. The eagle lined up. The raised ink lined up. The serial lined up, alive in her own ledger. Then she looked at Lorelei Winslett with the calm of a person whose entire job is other people's mistakes. And then Miss Lurline Broussard came out from behind window 2, in no hurry at all. She walked past her manager as if the woman were furniture, stopped in front of Boyce, and set Selah's passbook into his hands. Smoothed once. Safe. Whole. Your wife signed this at my window 23 years ago, sir, she said, in the voice you use in church when the truth is finally allowed indoors. It spent last night locked in my drawer. It was never going to see that shredder. Not on my schedule. For the first time in 2 days, something moved in Boyce Dunbar's face, and every phone in that lobby caught it. Not one person mistook it for weakness. Henserling let the moment stand for exactly 3 seconds. Then he turned to Lorelei Winslett, and the kindness left his voice the way heat leaves a doorway in January. Miss Winslett, pull up your incident report from yesterday. The counterfeit filing. Read me the verification reference. The one from the issuing desk you contacted. And Lorelei Winslett, reaching for her keyboard with the whole lobby watching, discovered that her hands had begun to shake. She read the reference code aloud because there was no way not to. 14 characters. Letters and numbers. Crisp as homework. Everly Doss wrote it down. Walked to the young teller's terminal and ran it against the issuing desk's contact log while the lobby held its breath. Nothing. She ran it against the fraud department's format. Nothing. She ran it against every reference system Granville National owned. And then she straightened up and said the quietest, loud sentence of the morning. This code does not exist anywhere in this bank. It was not issued. It was composed. Then your system lost it, Lorelei said. Her chin was still up. The chin was the last thing working. The phone logs. Please, Henserling said, without looking away from her. It took Everly Doss 4 minutes at the manager's own desk to pull the branch's outbound call record for Thursday morning. Between 10 and 11, the hour of the report, the Martin Avenue branch had placed exactly 0 outbound calls. Not to the issuing desk. Not to fraud. Not to anyone. The verification call Lorelei Winslett had certified under her own login, with her own reference, in a federally regulated system, had never happened anywhere except inside her imagination. I was protecting this branch, she said. You were not here. He was. He seemed. The whole thing presented as... She reached for the next word, and the next word was not there. 9 years of running that marble, and her vocabulary had never once needed to finish that sentence honestly. Say it, Boyce said quietly. It was the first thing he had said in minutes. And the room leaned toward it. Finish it. Ma'am. He seemed like what... She did not finish it. Her mouth closed, and her eyes went to the ropes. Hunting yesterday's audience. And yesterday's audience looked back at her like a jury. What happened next happened because Everly Doss was thorough. Sliding open the manager's file drawer in search of the branch's incident binder, she found, laid flat beneath it, A manila folder marked in tidy red pen. Pending review. Counsel put on gloves before he opened it. And then he stopped moving. And then he asked for the security camera over the desk to be preserved as evidence. All of it. Going back as far as storage went. Inside the folder were 11 instruments. A cashier's check. 2 insurance settlement drafts. A money order for a nursing school deposit. A church building fund check with a steeple printed in the corner. Each one confiscated at a window over the past 2 years as suspicious. Each one with a sticky note in Lorelei's rounded hand. A date. A little annotation. Attitude. Story did not add up. Walked out when pressed. None of them, not one, had ever been logged with the fraud department, which her own manual requires within 24 hours. They had simply been kept, trophies in a drawer, wearing the word review. 9 of the 11 names on those instruments belonged to black customers. The lobby could not have known that yet. Lorelei did not need to be told. Neither, from the look that crossed his face like the shadow of a plane, did Milton Henserling. I never used a racial word in my life, she said, very fast, into the silence. Not once. Ask anyone. Nobody asked about your words. Miss Winslett, Henserling said. The words were free. The drawer kept receipts. He took her badge himself. Not roughly. He held out his hand, palm up, and waited. And the waiting was worse than force. And the lanyard came over her head and caught, absurdly, on one blonde wave. And no one helped her with it. Her master key followed. Then Henserling said the sentence the phones would replay all weekend. You are suspended effective this minute. Pending termination and referral. And Miss Winslett, until the deputies of the county and the people from my office are done with this floor. You will wait where the customers wait. It took a moment to understand. Then a guard unhooked the velvet rope, and Lorelei Winslett, branch manager of Marden Avenue for 9 years, walked around her own counter and stood on the customer side of it, under the chandelier, in the middle of the roped lane where the Thursday line had laughed on cue for her. The morning customers shuffled sideways, leaving air around her. The little brass bell sat on the counter 8 feet away. Out of reach for the first time in 9 years. Nobody rang it. At the business desk, Ryland Burrell was very carefully doing nothing, his phone face down like a card he regretted. It did not help. Mr. Burrell, Henserling said, gathering his coat. Your devices belong to the bank. Leave them where they are. Monday, 8 sharp. Human resources. And bring nothing but yourself. We already have everything else. The video that traveled was not Ryland's. His phone was bank property by Friday noon, sealed in an evidence sleeve with his cologne still on it. The clip the world saw came from a woman in hospital scrubs who had been third in line on Thursday. 38 seconds. Steady-handed. Shot over the shoulder of the golf clothes man. The gasp. The bell rung twice. The bow. The tear. And the envelope. And the word 0 written in red. And a tall man in work boots saying, "Note the time." By Sunday night, the bell was a sound effect. People rang it over videos of their own worst days at their own counters. At clinics. At car lots. At school offices. Somebody slowed the clip down and found the exact frame where Lorelei Winslett glances at the scanner 8 inches from her elbow. The machine that would have ended the whole thing in 4 seconds. And chooses the audience instead. That frame became a poster. Under it, 5 words. The truth was right there. Monday morning, Granville National's own investigators walked into a wall of paper. And the paper was on fire. the incident report with its composed reference code, the phone log with its beautiful, domning 0, the drawer, photographed in place before a single item moved, 11 instruments fanned out like a card trick nobody wanted to see the end of. The bank's counsel sent the whole file to the county in a morning. Because there are weeks when the cheapest thing an institution can buy is honesty. And this was one of them. A federal banking examiner opened her own inquiry by Wednesday, and her first request was the drawer. And her second was every account Lorelei Winslett had ever flagged. The district attorney of that county was a methodical woman named Sybil Faraday, and she declined to be poetic about any of it. She charged what the paper proved: falsifying business records, for a verification call that never existed, criminal destruction of a financial instrument, for $7 million torn up at a window, and 11 counts of conversion, one for each item in the drawer, because keeping other people's money in your desk has an old, unglamorous name, and Sybil Faraday saw no reason to give it a newer, softer one. Then the county did the part that mattered most, the part the cameras mostly missed. It gave the drawer back. Milton Hensarling drove every mile of it himself, with Everly Doss riding shotgun holding the folders, because he had decided this was not a job you delegate. A retired postal carrier named DeWitt Gafford, 71, got back the insurance settlement he had been told was fraudulent 2 years ago. He had walked out of that lobby ashamed, and had never told his daughters why the roof did not get fixed. When the president of the region stood on his porch and counted the money out with interest, the old man asked him to wait, went inside, and came back wearing his postal service jacket. Because a man wants his uniform on when the record gets corrected. A nursing student got back her program deposit with a letter that turned her late fee into a scholarship. A small church 2 blocks off Marden Avenue got back its building fund plus interest. And the pastor read the bank's letter out loud from the pulpit. And the congregation did not cheer. They were quiet, which is what it sounds like when people have been believed at last. Ryland Burrell tried, briefly, to become a whistleblower. On Monday morning, he had forwarded his own video to Human Resources with a new title, Documentation of Misconduct, Gathered in the Course of Duty. It was a clever plan for about 9 days, which is how long it took the forensic team to image the corner office chat and find the same video posted Thursday at 10:36 under its original caption. Babe, I cannot breathe. 3 crying faces. At his deposition, the bank's lawyer read both titles aloud, one after the other, and then asked him to state which caption was written in the course of duty. The court reporter noted a silence of 11 seconds. His severance became a termination for cause somewhere inside those 11 seconds. The engagement did not survive the month. There was no scene. That was the strangest part. People said later. He simply stopped answering. And then a plain interoffice envelope arrived at the address they had once shared. And inside it was the ring. No note. Not one word written anywhere on it. She had taught him that trick herself. At a marble counter, with a red pen. She recognized the brand of cruelty immediately. It was her own, with the serial number filed off. Lorelei put the ring in the one place she still controlled. Her safe deposit box at the Marden Avenue branch. Rented years ago at the employee rate. Then the termination went through, and the employee rate went with it. And the invoices for the box went to an address she stopped checking. Because that spring she was busy pleading to a felony. Restitution with interest. 300 hours of service. A record that would follow her name through every background check forever. And a prohibition order from the regulators barring her from working behind any counter with money in it. In any state. For life. The judge took 9 minutes. You were handed the easiest job in banking. He said, the machine was at your elbow. You chose the bell. The box sat unpaid after that. Year over year, until the state's abandoned property law did what that law quietly does. It was drilled open in front of 2 witnesses, inventoried, and escheated, which is why, to this day, anyone who searches Lorelei Winslett's full legal name on the state's unclaimed property website finds one entry, posted for public claim, in language no one chose and no one can edit. Contents of one abandoned safe deposit box. 1 engagement ring. Yellow gold. Round stone. It is the first result. It outranks everything she ever wanted to be known for. And it will still be there when the servers outlive us all. The bank changed. In ways that cost money. Which is the only kind of change a bank fully means. Boyce asked for exactly 2 things. And refused a settlement check with a shake of his head that ended the conversation. First, every teller window in every branch got its own scanner mandate, printed on a small steel plate at each station. Every window verifies. No one overrides. A machine's 4 seconds now stood between every customer and any manager's imagination. Second, the incident report from Marden Avenue, the one with the composed reference code, went into the permanent training file for every new hire in the company. Unredacted. Hair login and all. Banks are good at records. Boyce told the board. In the only meeting he ever attended, let this one remember. And on the first Friday of every quarter, the new hire class at Granville National spends its opening hour not with a compliance video, but with a silver-haired woman of 64 who sets a small cloth passbook on the table in front of her and begins the same way every time. 29 years ago, they gave me a window. She says, let me tell you what a window is for. The reissued check arrived at the Marden Avenue branch 3 weeks later, hand carried by Milton Henserling, who had decided such errands do not get mailed. Same pale blue paper, same eagle, a new serial number, and under it 1 line Boyce had asked for, reissued to correct the record. Boyce came in wearing the gray work shirt because it had never been a costume, and the lobby that had once applauded on command went quiet on its own. He walked to window 4. Miss Lurline Broussard was waiting behind it. And this once, by written exception, the deposit went through by hand. Stamp and ink and initials. Into a joint account, 23 years old. She opened the soft cloth passbook to the first page, to the careful, upright handwriting that had waited 3 years for company. Then she stamped the new line beneath it and slid the book across the marble. The account that had held $41 now held $7 million, and 41 right below the sentence that sent it there. College. And then some. She would want you to know, Miss Lurline said, tapping the page once, that she was here first. She was always here first, Boyce said. And both of them let that be the whole conversation. He signed the relationship agreement the same afternoon. At the same window, moving Dunbar Cold Chain's accounts across, as Ryder had always promised. A reporter on the sidewalk asked why he would still bank at the place that tore up his check. Boyce considered the question completely, the way he considered a load manifest, and answered once. My wife chose this bank before it deserved her. Now it gets to spend the rest of its life earning her. He did not stop walking, and they did not print a better sentence that year. The campus plan got quietly redrawn that summer, and the corner acre where the old produce dock once stood came back to him, deeded for $1. Council's idea of poetry. Boyce planted it in peach trees. set a cedar bench where the dock scale used to sit, and bolted a brass plate to the gatepost. Sla's Field. It says, and underneath, smaller. In letters, you can read from a bicycle. First money goes to the book. The trees fruited the following June. And on the first Saturday of the harvest, a folding table appeared at the gate with a crayon sign and a cash box guarded like a Federal Reserve. Maisie Dunbar, 9 now, sold paper bags of peaches to half the East Side. She gave one bag away free to a man who stood a long while admiring the brass plate. And her father watched from the bench and stayed out of the negotiations. She counted $14 and change into the jar that evening. And on Monday after school, in a lobby where a steel plate on every window now reads, "Every window verifies. No one overrides." She marched to window 4 with the jar under her arm. Miss Lurline took the deposit 1 coin at a time, with enormous ceremony, then turned the passbook around and held out the pen. Maisie signed her own line right beneath her mother's handwriting. Pressing hard. The way she does everything. 3 hands in 1 book now. The careful, upright script of a 19-year-old saving for a college that did not have a student yet. The stamped line where $7 million came home with its serial number, and a signature you can feel through 4 pages. Like Braille that spells. We kept it. Boyce Dunbar walked his daughter out through the heavy brass front doors, past the spot where a bell used to ring twice for cruelty. And nobody in that lobby saw a work shirt anymore. They saw the man who owned every freezer between there and the coast, holding hands with the reason the account has a nickname, headed home to Perch Street, where the first money always knows its way.